Okay, continuing on with section 1C from Bennett and Briggs. We just finished up drawing a Venn diagram to illustrate a situation with two different variables, and now we want to move on to one that has three. So a survey revealed the following results about the news sources that a sample of 130 people use. And we get to see the different sources right away. One of them is TV radio. That's a little confusing because it sounds like two things, but they're saying maybe you use kind of traditional electronic sources, TV, radio. Maybe you use a newer electronic source like the internet, or maybe you go old-fashioned and use the paper and have the newspaper. And then each of these is saying that that's all the person used. When they say only, they're saying TV, radio is the only thing this person or these 20 people use. No internet, no newspaper, and then similar for the others. And we have 6 people, no news sources at all. But then a lot of people are going to use more than one source. So these people over here are using TV, radio, and internet. The only is a little confusing at first. Let me add some parentheses here. I think this clarifies what they mean. They're saying TV, and they use TV, radio, and they also use the internet. And when they say only, they mean but not the other source, which would be newspapers. And then when they say TV, radio, and newspapers only, they mean they're using those two, but not the internet. And then internet and newspapers only means those two, but not TV, radio, and then some folks using all three. Alright, so they want us to go ahead and illustrate that since we do have three different options, TV, radio, internet, and newspapers. I'm going to draw a Venn diagram with 3 circles. And we can see from this, and just think about it, that there's overlaps possible between these groups. So I'm going to draw the picture so that overlaps are possible as well. I'm going to have a lot to label here, so I'm going to try and make kind of a big box here. And so these would be the news sources. And we have 3 options. I'll go ahead and try and do those with different colors. So for the TV, radio, I'll go ahead and use this purple. And then for the internet, I'll use this slightly different maroon color. And then I'll bring in the teal for newspapers only. And we've got all 3 of them there with different overlaps showing. Did I do perfect circles? No, I was just trying to make them big so I have a little bit of room to write. So let's go ahead and label those. So this is going to be the TV radio option. And then in the maroon over here we've got the internet. And then finally down here in the teal we're doing newspapers. So now I want to start putting the numbers in. And first of all, I want to show you that we've got kind of a good matchup here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different things. And if we look at this, we have, a little hard to point them all out, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8 where you're not in any circles, different regions here too. So we just need to figure out which of these numbers go with which regions. So when they say TV and radio only, they mean in the TV circle, TV radio circle, but that's it, not inside any of the others. So we want to be inside of this, but not inside of internet and newspapers. So I need to be in this zone over here. This is where those 20 folks would be. They're in the TV radio circle, but they're not in internet and they're not in newspapers, so it's fair to say they're TV and radio only. And then I want to do that in a similar fashion for the internet. If it's internet only, you've got to be in the internet circle, but can't be inside of the purple or the blue. So those 29 folks are maybe right here. And how many use newspapers only? So we want to be inside the teal, but not in the purple or the maroon or brown. So that would be 15 people right here are in the newspaper circle, but they're not in either of the others, so they are newspaper only. And then we start looking at some of the other options. There's 6 people who have no sources of news, so they're not doing any of these things, so they're not in any of those circles. So I can show them off to the side over here. And then looking at these other options, TV and internet only, so that means in the TV radio circle, also in the internet circle, but only that, so not in the newspaper circle. So inside of the purple, also inside of the maroon, but not inside of the teal. So it sounds like those 12 would be right here because that's in the purple, it's in the brown, but it's not in the blue. And then following on a similar fashion, if you want TV, radio, and newspaper, that would be the overlap of those two. So that would be the purple and the blue, or the teal. And then not inside of the internet one. So those 18 would be right here. And then internet and newspapers, that's the overlap between the maroon and the teal, but not inside of the purple. And those 22 people would be right here. That's in internet, that's in newspaper, but it is not in TV, radio, so they're internet and newspaper only. And then finally 8 people with all three, so this zone right here is inside of the purple, the maroon, and the teal, so that would be all three. So that's what it looks like to go through and label a Venn diagram when there are 3 different circles and therefore 8 different regions. Alright, now that we've created that Venn diagram, let's go ahead and move on to try and use it to answer some questions. So how many people use at least TV, radio, and newspapers? And again, this is a little tricky to read at first. When they say at least TV, radio, and newspapers, they're saying that if we ask them the question, do you use TV, radio, and newspapers? They would say, yes, I use both of those things. And when it says at least, that says, hey, maybe they use the internet, maybe they don't. We didn't ask them about that. We asked, do you use these two? And they said yes. So we want to count all the people that are in the overlap of TV, radio, and newspapers. So that's in the overlap of the purple and the teal. So there's these 18 people are saying yes to that, and so I'm going to count those. But I would also count these 8 people, and at first that might seem wrong because you might say, wait, those people use the internet. Well, we didn't ask them if they use the internet. We just said, do you use TV and radio? And if they are in here, they'd say, yeah, I use both of those things. And so if we happen to ask these people to use the internet as well, they'd say yeah. And these 18, if we said to use the internet also, they'd say no, I don't do that. But still, they're all going to say yes, I use TV, radio, and I use newspapers. So if they're in the overlap of those two, whether they're in the internet or not, we want to count them. So it'd be those 18 plus 8 more, which would be 26. And then how many of the people use TV, radio, or internet? When you hear the or, it could be one or the other or both. So if they would say yes to this, we want to count them. If they would say yes to this, we would want to count them. And if they would say yes to both, we want to count them. But we do want to be careful not to count anybody twice. So I'm going to start off with the TV, radio. Let me go ahead and color code this a little bit. So how many people out there would say, yes, I use TV, radio? So we want everybody that is in the TV, radio circle. So we have 20 plus 18 plus 8 more here plus 12 more there. All of those people are inside the purple circle, so they should be counted. And then when you move on to or the internet, you want to count anybody that uses the internet. And that would include these 12 and these 8, but I've already got them, so I'll just underline them to kind of note that I have already counted these people. But you also want to count these other 22 and 29 because they use the internet. So we have those 8, those 12, plus we pick up 22 more, and then 29 after that. So when you're asked an or question, what you want to do is all of the first, and then anything additional you pick up from the second one. So I counted all 4 of the different numbers I found inside the purple for TV, radio, and then I moved on to internet, and I already had those 2, so I didn't count them again, but I counted anything that was new, which was the 22 and the 29. And now it's just a matter of going on to figure out what that total is. So just bring in the calculator real quick just to do the simple addition that we want there. And slide that over a little bit so we can see the numbers. So we had 20 plus 18 plus 8 plus 12, 22, and 29. So when we add that all together, I come up with 109 people falling into those 2 categories. So that would be my answer. A lot of different people to count in different zones and different configurations, but all of those people would say, yeah, I do at least one of those 2 things. And that's another way you can think of an or, is do you do at least one of these? So all the people who do this, plus the people we pick up that just do that. Let's try another one. How many people use TV, radio, or internet, but not newspapers? So if you look at this part right here, TV, radio, or internet, that's what we just did. So I think one easy way to do this, or maybe one of the easier ways to do it, would be to just say, look, we already counted those. There's 109. And then they say, oh, but not the people who do the newspapers. So we don't want those newspaper folks counted in there. So from those 109, are there any we should subtract out? And I would say, yes, we should subtract out 18, 8, and, whoops, another minus here, 18, 8, and 22. I would subtract those people out because they were originally counted among the 109, and now I'm getting this news, oh, wait a minute, you're not supposed to count, or all of a sudden now we're saying we don't want you to count the ones that do the newspaper. So of the 109, I need to subtract out those 18, those 8, and those 22. You might wonder, why didn't I subtract out the 15? And the answer would be because I had not counted them in the initial 109. So I'm looking at this as, look, I want everybody that I just counted up above except for the ones from here that are newspaper readers. So I'm subtracting out those 18, 8, and 22. And then, again, we can go to the calculator on that. 109 minus the 18 minus the 8 and minus the 22. And we come up with 61. That's not the only option for doing that. Another way we could have done it is when we went through and counted all these folks, we could have just avoided counting those in the first place. So if I kind of go up to that previous answer, I could have said, oh, when I counted these people, I shouldn't have counted these 18, these 8, or these 22, because they were ones that were newspaper readers and they didn't want those. So I would just add the 20, the 12, and the 29. And if I take that 20 and the 12 and the 29, I get the same 61. So there's more than one way to go at this, but it's certainly helpful to try and figure that out by having this Venn diagram with all the different regions shown. If I was trying to do it just by looking at the original table, I don't know if I could get through it. But this helps me visualize it and gives me at least the opportunity to use some strategies to figure out what they want and what they don't want. All right, let's go ahead and look at the last couple. How many people use the internet but not the radio? So that's actually pretty similar to what we just did, so we should be able to use a similar strategy. Let's go count everybody that's in the internet except for the ones that are the TV radio section. So how many are internet users? So we could go back and look. It looks like we have 8 plus 12 plus 22 plus 29. Those are all inside of the internet. So let me go ahead and write those down. 8 plus 12 plus 22 plus 29. But that's just doing internet, and then now let's look at it where they're saying, wait a minute, not the ones with TV radio. Okay, let's back up and look at that. Of the ones I just counted, I guess I should not have counted these two because they were TV radio. So let me go ahead and get rid of those. So at first I looked at everybody that used the internet, and then I got rid of the ones that were TV radio because they said to, and that leaves me with 22 plus 29, which I believe would be 51. All right, let's see what the final one is they want us to look at. How many people use TV and radio but not newspapers? So this should just help us to practice that idea a little bit more because it's the same strategy still. So we want to go with TV, radio. So I'm going to count out all the ones that are in the purple. So looking at that, that looks like 20, 12, 18, 8. Everybody that I'm counting right there was in TV, radio, and now I'm going to say, oh, wait a minute, but not the people that are newspapers. And if I go look at, of the ones I just counted, the 20, the 12, the 18, and the 8, the 18 and the 8 were in the newspaper circle, so I guess those are the ones that I would look back at and say, oh, whoops, not those. I mean, you could avoid counting those in the first place, but I think this is one kind of good strategy to take where you say, hey, let's count all of these, and then because they're telling us not the newspaper, we'll get rid of the extra ones that were in that group. That leaves us with 20 plus 12, so we end up with 32 people altogether in that group. So obviously this is a little bit tricky thoughts to go through there. There is more than one way to get at this, so if you were looking at any of these problems and thought about it in a different way, but you still ended up with the same total, there's a good chance that you're still taking a valid option and getting the correct answer in a correct manner even. There's definitely more than one way to think about that, as I showed you a couple different ways that we could think through the 61 and still get it. So this is a strategy that I think has a decent chance of you being able to follow and remember and use in different homework. But again, if you see something else, even if it's more clever than what I've done, if it's giving the same total, it's a good chance you're onto a proper strategy yourself. And if you're not sure, feel free to bring up what you tried with me later, and I'll kind of verify if that seems correct.